welcome to the Keys to Therapy. Today's episode is all about networking. So, I have a Facebook group for newer therapists, and I polled them recently and asked, what topic would you guys want more information on? And it could be anything from private practice to stuff regarding, the licensing process, whatever else. And networking was actually the one that got the most votes. So, that surprised me a bit, but I think it goes to show you too, it's one of those things that really isn't discussed a lot in school. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it much in general. So I wanted to take today's episode to be able to do a deep dive into what networking can look like for a therapist. So a lot of times, especially if you're in a more private practice type space, you're at a group practice, you have your own practice, you plan on having your own practice in the future, networking is going to be essential to your success because a lot of times the best referrals that you get are from other therapists and the other great referral sources from other clients. So you really want to build those up. And networking can take up a lot of time and space if you're not really doing it efficiently. So I think a lot of the ways that people tend to do it really aren't very efficient, but it's sort of what's always been done. So people think that that's how it's supposed to be, but in reality it's just honestly kind of a letdown for a lot of people. So in networking, people often, it feels like they do it out of desperation, and sometimes you can feel that when you're meeting with people. So it's good to be really mindful about what are your intentions with networking. Do you need clients? Because I think a lot of people do, and that's the main reason they're doing it. Yeah. But if that's what's coming across in your interactions with people, that's going to be a major turnoff for people. So make sure that you're going into networking spaces with the right mindset. Like, yeah, I want to meet more clients, but I also want to just make more connections in this field. I want to know who to refer certain clients to when I get somebody that I really don't work with the issues that they have going on. So if you come at it less of like, I need clients, and more of, I want to build my community and I want to have a great referral network for potential clients, I think it's going to show in your interactions. So absolutely start with the mindset piece first. Now, when you are working in more traditional places, hospitals, agencies, rehabs, like stuff like that, there might not be as big of a need to network as there is in some of these more like private sectors, but it's still really great to understand what some of those resources are in the community, because then you may have people that want to know what your services are. So if they have a client who needs a higher level of care or a different type of care, you understand where those referral sources to you might be coming from. Also, a lot of times in those places, there's a need for other, like a client might be coming to you in a rehab, but maybe they have family that really needs some support. And if you want to provide the best care to that client, it would be great to know what some of the resources are in the area. So regardless of whether it's your primary thing you need to do, like say you're in that private sector and you feel like you have to network and build that referral source or those referral sources, or if you're in a more typical 9-to-5 type setting and you just want to know what's going on in the community. Because sometimes you can feel sort of removed from the therapy community when you're only working with the people in your building or at your agency or within the network, the hospital network or whatever it is that you're a part of. So I think it's really important to just sort of understand what's out there. Also, a lot of people don't tend to stay in those spaces that are the, again, traditional type of places. Maybe you start your career out there to get your hours, and then you want to do something that's more in the private sector because that's where your needs are, or maybe you're working more in like a short term, like a hospital inpatient setting, and you want to start working more outpatient. So you switch to an agency or a facility that has those capabilities. You networking also helps you understand more about what types of jobs are out there and what people are doing. So there could be benefits for you long term in your career. So another bonus, I guess, for networking. But let's get to the steps that you can actually go out and start doing today, and the steps you can take to get this thing going. Because a lot of times when people hear networking, they're like, do you drop off cards to a doctor's office? Or like, what are you doing? Yeah, backtrack. Like I said, first start with the mindset piece of it, right? You want to go in understanding what your reasons are and have your intentions be more pure than just, yeah, I need clients. So understand that piece of it. The next part is to know what your niche is. Who is it that you work with? And it doesn't need to be super specific, especially if you are earlier on in your career. It might be like, I love working with kids. I love working with couples. Maybe it's not as specific as, I like working with couples where one partner has PTSD and the other one is trying to support them through it. That'd be super niche. But maybe for you, it's right now like couples and you're still trying to figure out what that is. That's okay. But if you come into some of these networking spaces as a generalist, like, I work with whoever, I take whoever, then when somebody gets a consult call or they get some sort of referral that crosses their desk, if you don't have a specific niche, they're not going to remember you. They're just not. They've probably met a ton of people. But if you're that person who they know loves working with elementary school age kids, then they're gonna, when they get that and they're like, somebody like me who's I don't work with kids, then they will think of you. So you want to have even just a general, whether it's an age group, whether it's a disorder. I love working with, clients who are experiencing borderline personality disorder traits. Then that's your thing. And somebody will be like, okay, I have somebody for you. So it's really good to be able to know when you're out here networking, you've got to be able to sell yourself a little bit. And you have to be memorable to the people that you're coming across, because I have a stack behind me in a bag I got at some event, a stack of cards. And maybe if there's a day I get really stuck, I might sit here and look through them. And a lot of the business cards probably don't even say who they work with, to be honest. So recommend you put that on your business cards too, because not everyone's going to remember everything. And I've been to a bunch of different events or places where trainings, whatever, conferences where people give you their cards. So most of the time though, I don't even bother to go through that stack. I go off of who have I talked to, who seems like a really cool person, who comes to mind when I think of, somebody who does EMDR and specializes in trauma, like those types of things. And it's based off of the connection I made with that person and somebody looking at me being like, this is what I love working with. And that sticks, especially for me, if it's the ones that stick the most are going to be the ones I don't work with, because I know there's going to be that need for that. And as therapists, you're not supposed to be able to work with every person that comes across your desk or who's in your inbox or whatever. I don't think it's one size fits all. And even though you can be a generalist for a bit and maybe you never have a super specific niche, there's always going to be certain types of clients that you're just a better fit for. So lean into that. That's okay. That's actually a great thing to have for the clients as well as for their therapists. So first thing, understand who it is you like to work with, so you can present that as you're presenting yourself. Because networking, yeah, it's about getting the person to know you, but at the end of the day, the main reason that they're going to care about you is they know that you guys can help each other out. So I think that that's something to come to the table with before you go to an event. Another thing is make a professional Facebook page that is establishing who you are as a therapist. You don't have to post a ton, but it's very helpful to go on some of the Facebook groups for therapists, especially local ones, because it's a great way to network with some different people, especially if you work in a virtual space, or like I said earlier, maybe you're in a setting where you're in that same place all day long and you're really only communicating with the people that are your direct coworkers. So I think that can be really helpful. To have this Facebook page. Now, a lot of times, most people, generationally, a lot of people on, I don't know, like millennials, we kind of have Facebook stuff, but we really haven't used it as often over the years. I've noticed a lot of older generations use it more because that was their first real entry into social media, and that's where a lot of their people are. So it's okay if you're not using it primarily for social media, or if you are much younger, you're Gen Z, and you're like, oh, Facebook's for old people or whatever, like I've heard some people say. It's like, yeah, you don't have to post what you ate today or your vacation pictures, but you definitely want to have a presence there because the Facebook groups for therapists are huge. There's some out here with like 20,000 people in them. And a lot of times, I would say probably like 75% of the time that I see posts, they're for people looking for help for a client. Whether it's their direct client, somebody that they're like, okay, they've got this issue coming through now and I can't work with that, or they have a family member who needs a referral, or they're out of my scope of practice, or they called, but I already know right off the bat that I don't work with what they have going on, so I'm going to need some referrals for them. So that's a really great place, not only to get clients, but to also see what other people are doing. And on the other hand, too, a lot of times when there's networking events, people post them in the local groups. So I would join some of the local ones, and I would also join some of like the national ones. So you are covered, especially if you work in a virtual space. Absolutely join more of the national ones, because that is going to help you out if you can see clients across the entire state that you're licensed in. But for in-person events, definitely join some of your local Facebook groups for therapists specifically. I see a lot of times people post stuff about like, you know, practices that are just opening, or prescribers post a lot in there too. So there sometimes it feels like so much harder to find somebody who is opening. So, or if there's a thing that comes up for you that you're like, oh gosh, now this client like really needs medication, you can post and be like, is anybody in this area taking on new clients with this insurance or with private pay or in this, you know, or that deal with this specific disorder? So the Facebook groups, big deal in the therapy space. So even if you just get a page for that, the reason I say to make a professional profile if possible is because even though like a lot of people can have private ones, like my personal one's private, it feels weird because it's not my full name on there for client purposes. Like I try to, you know, have a whole video on that, but like make your social media a little bit more restrained, so that way it's just limited for clients to be able to access you. I think it's still very helpful to have like a professional presence, because on your page you can have your headshot or whatever professional picture and some of the information about where you work and the websites and stuff like that. So if you do comment, you look more legit than maybe somebody who has the same Facebook name that they did like 10, 15 years ago or whatever. And it just keeps you a little bit more at a distance. So it's more of like that work-life balance for you, where it's like, this is the page that I go ahead and network on there, and then this is the one for like family I barely see or whatever. So I would look at that. Also, try to go to a couple in-person events. I think for so many of us that are either stuck in an office all day or we're stuck at our house all day doing virtual therapy, it's really helpful to go out and meet other people in the community. It just obviously, like I said earlier, for the client piece of it, but also just personally, a lot of people don't really understand what we do, and it's hard in this field because I've found personally that when I meet people, I have a tough time just doing like the random small talk for very long, because I spend all day talking about the deep stuff. So I'm ready to go there, 10 minutes into a conversation, it'll be like, okay, and what's, your childhood trauma? Like, I think it's a joke, but it's also kind of true. Like, a lot of therapists are like down to really get to know people and talk about the real stuff. And most other people are like, whoa, that's a lot really fast. Or when we're talking about some of the stuff we deal with on a day-to-day basis, like if you're talking to somebody and you're like, oh gosh, I had like 25 clients this week, and they're like, so you only worked 25 hours? Like, big deal, I worked 50. Not understanding that 25 hours of sitting there talking to somebody and being present and analyzing everything that they're going through and trying to make connections between their past and their present and help them reach their future goals, while also paying attention to any nonverbal things they have going on and remembering the names of that weird ex-boyfriend they had who keeps coming up, and like all of the different things that we have to do at the same time. And also be aware of our own body language and how we're presenting ourselves and what we're going to say next, and all of these like things we're doing at the same time. People don't understand how much goes into it. They're like, oh, you talk to people for a living? So when you are, especially early on in this field, you want to connect with people who get it, who when you say I had 25 this week, they're like, oh my gosh, like take care of yourself because they understand that that's just a part of your job. It's not even all the admin stuff and the notes and, billing and whatever other random things, meetings, stuff you have to do. So find your people. And I think a lot of therapists end up having really great friends who are therapists too, because again, we just kind of get it. So I know most of my friends at this stage of life are therapists. So it's fun to have some of the friends in the other spaces, but just based off what I do, where I've worked, the people I've connected with, vast majority are therapists too. So you want to be able to have those people in those places to vent to. Plus, then they might be connected as well, and then you're just increasing that referral network for yourself while also making some personal connections, which is great too. Now, I had mentioned earlier that the old school way of networking was get a bunch of business cards, show up at a doctor's office, explain what you do, and bring them a snack or something, and I think that method only works if you have a very specific niche and the doctors have a very specific niche. So say that you work with women struggling with infertility and you provide individual therapy, you do group therapy, maybe there's like psychoeducational stuff around it, and you want to go to a fertility clinic. You want to go to people who specialize in that. That's a great match because you both are very niche. You see the same population and you guys can refer to each other. So that becomes like mutually beneficial. If you have that specialty and you're just talking to a random primary care doctor, one, they're seeing clients like every 10, 15 minutes. So they're probably not even going to remember you or have the time to individually meet with you. So then you're really only speaking with their receptionist possibly. And then you're dropping off a card. Like I said, stack of cards back here. Most doctors are going to have the exact same thing. And if they haven't been able to meet you and have that personal connection, why would they remember you? If anything, they're probably going to end up Googling people if that, they happen to have a client that has those issues. Because again, it's very niche. They're going to Google providers. So it's not really worth your time unless it's something super specialized. I would say the same thing if you work with kids, with schools. Schools have their own counselors and they have their own resources. So unless there's something very specific that you offer, so you work specifically with kids who are struggling with developmental delays and self-esteem, then present that information. But if you just generally work with kids or you just offer play therapy or whatever else, and it's not very specialized, they're not going to turn to you in the community. So I think it's very helpful to really look at, that's why I said first, after mindset, know your niche, because that's going to be your ticket for marketing, where people are going to be like, oh, that's the girl that works with this. That's the guy that works with that. And it's going to come up in their minds. So, don't waste a lot of time when you're first starting out putting yourself out there and spending all this money on tons of business cards and flyers and like all this stuff, or emailing a ton of different doctors' offices. That stuff typically doesn't work. You want to do more of, let me genuinely connect with some of the people that I know I can help, but also I think they can, help me, and it can be mutually beneficial. And that's where that mindset piece is really important, because if you seem desperate for clients, the other person's going to be like, all right, great, thanks. But if it's like, hey, I offer this support, I would love to give you a flyer for this group I'm doing for, women and men struggling with infertility, and provide that, then it's like, well, I'm giving you a resource that will help your clients. And then maybe at some point you'd be a referral source for me, but you don't want to just go in with like, look at me and all the things I do, because most of the time nobody's going to care, to be honest, and that doesn't leave the best impression. But if it's like, here's how we can help each other out, that's a very different, much healthier, much more beneficial approach. So I would go that route. And like I said, look for some in-person events, even sometimes other things in your community. If you own a practice, look at like the Chamber of Commerce in your city, because there's almost always events for some of those things. Do more of like the general type of networking events within the community. If you work with, say like children who are experiencing divorce, right? Like their parents are going through a divorce and they're caught in the crosshairs. Maybe then you would want to network with divorce attorneys and be a resource for them. So again, finding niche to niche sort of thing. But, you know, overall, try to make personal connections. And it's okay if it's with people outside your field as long as it's adjacent in some way. I think that could be very helpful. So also some of the providers you use. We've got like strict things sometimes as therapists for, you know, who we can refer to, but sometimes it's not the same for other professions. So if you're in your own primary care doctor's office and you have a great relationship with them and they're asking you, how are you doing? How's your stress level? How's your job? Slip them a card, because at least then they know you personally and you're already in the office. Why not? If you work a lot with mindfulness and meditation and stuff like that, and you go to a yoga studio or Pilates, ask if you can pin the card if they have a board somewhere. You know, if you are working at like a co-working space and you work a lot with entrepreneurs, see if they have some place where you could potentially market. But be very smart about your networking, because like I said, I think a lot of people are like, I need to put myself out there. And I've seen people do this and it comes across inauthentic. So where somebody will post on every Facebook group, hi, I'm so-and-so, and here's all of the people I work with. Here's my website. I'm taking new clients. Thanks. And like the same, like, look at me, here's what I do, comes out, and like I'll see the same post 4 or 5 times as I'm scrolling through the groups. So if it's more like, hey, I'd love to connect. I just moved here. I'm getting to know some different referral sources. I'm looking for people who see kids and who see couples, because I personally don't. So if that's you and you have potential openings and want to connect, like, let's schedule a virtual coffee date. Or, hey, I'm new to this area. When is there, or does anybody know of any kind of, or I'm new to my practice or new to this job. You know, does anybody know of any upcoming networking events? Put that stuff out there and see. Sometimes you will find people that will reach out to you and they will be quick to comment because they want to connect too. So absolutely go into some of those spaces in that way versus a very like seller type of, here's everything I do, give me clients. You know, it just isn't, it doesn't come across that great. So to sort of sum it all up, networking, super important, any stage of your career. The sooner you can start it, the better. I would even go as far as say, like, make a spreadsheet on your computer or something and have a list of like, here's some of the people, here's their website, here's who they work with, here's what insurance they take or don't take, and start collecting some of that information. So that way, if you come across something, you've already got the list of the people that you've liked, that you've connected with, versus running through a stack of cards when a lot of them probably don't even say who the people work with, so you're not going to remember. So yeah, I think having the mindset, again, is really important. So make sure you come in with the, I want to make genuine connections and really increase my resources as a new therapist or as a therapist in this new space or whatever it is. Like, have that be the intention, because that's going to make a very big difference in how your marketing is coming across. So, and a lot of the networking and marketing are the same things. You're networking to market. You're marketing while networking. So it's kind of a lot, but it doesn't have to be. Don't overdo it. And also have a stopping point for yourself, because a lot of times, especially people who are wanting more clients, they'll be like, oh, let's have a coffee date. Let's have a coffee date. And if you find yourself having like 10, 15 of those, you know, and you're at a good place with clients, or you feel like you're already burned out with some of this, like, you don't have to do all of that. That's kind of a lot. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of energy. So if you've got it in the beginning of this new job or new practice or whatever, do it a couple times, but really try to maximize your efforts. So join the Facebook groups, check those, you know, every day, every couple days, and sort of see what's out there. Ask questions, you know, build up those resources and put yourself out there in as much of an authentic way as possible, and be curious. Try to learn about people and not just have your speech about how to sell yourself, because it's going to make a very big difference. And then, you know, a lot of the other stuff with networking are really just like people skills that a lot of you probably already know. But when you are meeting people in person, dress in an outfit you feel cute and comfortable in. Make eye contact. Ask questions. Don't just talk about yourself the entire time. If there's if you're meeting with somebody because you're really interested in how they did something, offer to buy their coffee, right? A lot of times, and I know this is a point of life I'm in now, I did a lot of stuff for free in the very beginning of starting my practice, but now 2 years in running a private pay practice and expanding into these other spaces, I don't have time to do a lot of stuff for free. I'm not going to charge a ton, but I'm going to be very, very selective with my time and energy. So every once in a while, I'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll go to this event, or yeah, sure, I'll meet with this person, or whatever else. But you just have to be more selective with your energy as you get busier. So remember that in the beginning too. Don't just meet with anybody and everybody. Try to find the spaces that, whether it's these like meetings or it's one-on-one coffee dates with people that you think you would genuinely connect with. Don't just put yourself out there, because it is kind of draining to do that a lot. So be very mindful of your time. Be mindful of asking people for free advice, because most people have spent a lot of time and energy and money on trainings and different things to get them to the point that they're at. So it can be frustrating if you are trying to pick someone's brain for information. Like, there's too many free resources out here for you to ask somebody to do that for free and take up that time in their day. So, be mindful of those types of things too, because I see that a lot. And sometimes some people could read that as like disrespectful, of like, oh, you just want to meet with me because you want to know how I do things. And really, this isn't mutually beneficial in any way. And also, you want my knowledge for free that I spend a lot of money and time getting. So it could be really iffy. So try to be authentic. Be mindful, again, about who you choose to network with and the spaces you put yourself in, and be open to putting yourself out there, because you might meet some really great people. I met a couple really good friends when I moved back here to Charlotte, making a Facebook post in the group being like, I haven't lived in Charlotte in like 7 years. I am totally unfamiliar with the resources and the people in this city. So any recommendations, whether it's like, people who want to meet up, places that just opened recently or in the last couple of years I need to eat at, like, and I genuinely meant that. Like, give me all the bakeries that are good. So, find ways to connect authentically. And by doing that, I met a really great friend. So, and I connected with a couple other people who were really nice as well. So, yeah, just be you. Be mindful, be authentic, be selective, and choose the networking outlets that feel the best to you. So I hope that this video was helpful. I know it's a little bit of networking, it's a little bit of marketing, and it's a lot of like trying to hype you up so that you're in the best space possible to make these things worth your while. And I hope that these techniques benefit you. So get that Facebook profile going. Get into some of these groups. Do some of the things that are going to put your name out there in a way that you feel good about, and see what happens. So, well, good luck to you guys. And if you want to follow along with future videos, go ahead and subscribe below. That helps me out so I can continue to provide free content to you all. And yeah, I will see you all next time. Thanks. Bye.